Hi YouTube, welcome to my channel, So Fast I Young. Today we are going to do our second episode of A Time to Dye. So today we're going to be dyeing a gi for a friend of mine. It is an older grungy gi that he simply just wanted me to kind of change the color up on and give me an opportunity to play with some dye. We're going to be turning it a lovely like army green, kind of avocado-y, maybe not quite as dark as avocado, like more army green, olivey green. I chose to go with the Procion fiber reactive dyes because it is a 100% cotton gi. When you are dyeing, one of the most important things, the very first thing that you need to figure out is what fiber content is of the fabric or garment you are going to be dyeing. That really plays a large part in what dyes you're going to be buying. Natural fabrics use very different dyes than synthetic fabrics. There are some that can kind of cross over to both, like RIT currently now makes a dye more version that you can dye both cottons and synthetics with. It really comes down to knowing what products you need to use to get the best results. And there's a lot of different options. I mean, there's RIT out there, but beyond RIT and Dylon, is Dylon the other one that sells in stores that you can find sometimes? It's like iDye Poly or whatever like that. Like those ones that you can find in stores, they work okay, but there are a lot better products out there if you just know where to get them. And I highly recommend exploring Dharma Trading Company. Again, not sponsored, just the place that I love to shop for my dye. Once you know the fiber content of your dye, you can make choices about how you're going to dye it. Like I said, I'm working with 100% cotton gi. We're going to use the fiber reactive Procion dyes for two reasons. One, I don't want to have to deal with large pots of boiling water on the stove in order to do this, which is what you really need to get the best result from RIT. RIT, you need the time and heat to really set that dye and make it so that it fades less and doesn't run onto other items. RIT has a big tendency to run, in my opinion. So I like the fiber reactive dye because I don't need super hot water. I need like medium hot water, warm water. I need time, I need a big space, and I need some other chemicals that I add into it that make the reaction. But in the end, it is more color fast and just lasts longer. So I find that the fiber reactive dyes, particularly in cotton, don't fade nearly as much, and they definitely don't run onto other items nearly as much. I did a whole bunch of color matching for several shows over the year. One in particular was 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, and every brother and bride had to have their own color. So I did a lot of dye matching to get everybody in the right color families, and all of that. None of that ran through the entire, like we would wash all of it with other things. None of it ran, none of it faded. It was great. So I highly recommend exploring other options for dye. You know, when you're working, and there's other things like when you're working with wools or silks or other stuff, there's these like acid dyes and other stuff that we might get into down the line. And maybe even some of the good dyes for synthetics as well. It'll just kind of depend on what projects or what I feel like making a project to show you all. Number one thing is to know what the fiber content of your fabric is. So then once you've got that, then there's a whole process that you're going to go through. So today I'm going to show you how we wash and prepare the fabric to dye it. I'm going to go over how we mix up both the dye, we like paste up and mix up the dye to start with, how we make a dye bath, how you go through that process, how long it needs to do all of that, and then how you mix up the soda ash chemical fixative that is used to actually set the fiber reactive dyes. And that's the part that's kind of the magic. It's the thing that really makes it set. This particular type of dye is also great for tie-dye. I do plan to do a video. I have a couple of pieces that I want to tie-dye that I own, and then I also have a shirt that I would like to dip dye. So we're gonna hopefully down the line do videos on that too, just as like a little sneak preview of what I might be showing you within the next few months of dyeing processes. It's starting to finally cool off. So everything that you see today, I actually filmed a couple months ago for the most part. There's been a lot going on, which is why I haven't put the video out yet. So I'm very sorry about that, but it's here now. But now that things are starting to cool off, I can probably do some more things outside too. Part of why it took so long to get this video done is I actually had to dye the gi a second time. When we first dyed it, I used the color moss green, and it was good, but it turned out gray, and my friend really wasn't happy with it. So I ended up purchasing more dye, and we did it a second time. It is very slight. It's a very tonal shift, I guess, kind of. It went from a gray tone to a green tone, but it didn't gray to green tone, but it didn't really like change the color vibrancy or value. It's just like, it's like this shift. I can see it up close, like in the daylight and whatnot. I'm not sure how much it'll show up on camera though when I kind of put them side by, or well, I can't put it side by side, but when I show you the differences. So we'll have to see how that goes, and yeah, let's dye. Okay, so after you have figured out what your textiles are made out of and what you need to dye them, and after you have purchased your dye stuffs and whatnot, your first thing you're going to do with your fabric or garment is wash it. So I'm going to throw it in my wash machine. So we are using the Dharma Professional Textile Detergent. Comes from Dharma Trading. The other brand that is available is one called Synthropol. Either one is good. They're better to use for this than any detergent than you would get from the store. Mostly because those sometimes have additives and whatnot that can leave residue. These will definitely pull out. These are like made to pull out residues. So it will take care of oils and residues from fabric softeners, other things that might have been previously used on the garment. It will also pull out excess dye, either from something that is freshly bought and you want to pull dye out of, or you can use this again. I will use this after I have done the dye process to pull out extra dye that is left behind so it doesn't come off on anything in the future. So it's just useful to have. It doesn't take a lot. I mean, this bottle will last me quite a while. I don't do that many dye projects at home, at least currently, although that might change. But you'll use about 1/4 cup of this and hot water and wash your fabric up and prep it for dye. Okay, here's a quick rundown of the basics that you are going to need for tub dyeing. Okay, so there's a couple of options of what you can do this in. You can literally do this in a bathtub if you don't think it will stain it, or if you don't care. It really won't most of the time, and you can clean it out with bleach and whatnot. You can do this in a wash machine. It has to be a top load wash machine that fills up like normal, not a fancy one, not one of those like smart machines. It's got to be like a normal traditional old wash machine if you're going to try a wash machine. If you're doing a lot of stuff, that's probably the easiest way. That will do up to about 8 pounds of fabric in a wash machine. So I'm not going to do that. I could do that. I could do this in a wash machine, honestly, but I live in an apartment and I don't want to put it in the wash machine that I have here in the apartment. And so I'm going to use this 18-gallon tub right here. I originally bought a 5-gallon bucket because I thought I would be able to do it in that, but then once I saw the size of the gi and weighed it, weighs about 3 pounds, so you want about 3 gallons of water per pound of fabric, roughly, and you need a certain amount of space to like have your fabric swish around, you know? So I'm going to fill that about half up using the 5-gallon bucket and dye it in here. Well, not in here. I'm going to dye it outside on my balcony, which you'll see later. So you need some sort of vessel in which to do your dyeing. If you're doing a really small amount of fabric, I mean, I've done it in like one of these type of things, you know, like a dish for a very small amount. I used to do a lot of the fiber reactive dye in a utility sink, which, I mean, the utility sink that we had was probably maybe a little bit smaller than this. So that's what I used to use at work, was the utility sink, and then I just pull the plug out and drain it out and rinse it and run it through the wash machine afterwards. So that's, I mean, if I had a house with a garage and a utility sink, that would be great. Maybe someday. But I don't. I have a second floor apartment. So all right, so vessel. Next, other things that you're going to need. You will need measuring utensils. You should have separate measuring utensils for dyeing. Please do not use any sort of container that you are dyeing in, whether it is this or if you're using steel, like metal pots on a stove to do dyeing that needs heat. Have separate ones specifically for dyeing. So this measuring cup and these measuring spoons and whatnot, and this set of tongs will never be used for anything else other than dye from this moment on. And yeah, like even if I was doing like a pot dye on the stove, I would have a specific pot that I kept separate for dye work. It's just better. You don't want to cross-contaminate. I mean, this stuff isn't super toxic, but it's still, you just don't want to do that. I mean, like fiber reactive dye and this, you all will be able to put down a drain at the end. You don't have to dispose of it in any special way. It's considered semi-non-toxic, but you still don't want to ingest it. It's not like safe to ingest, and definitely not once it's had soda ash mixed in it, because this is caustic. Okay, so dye stuffs. You'll need your measuring cups. You'll probably want a nice big pair of tongs or something to help stir your fabric around, and then also to lift it out at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dye it in here. I'm going to end up pulling it out, putting it into the 5-gallon bucket, and then taking it inside to wash in my wash machine. With the aforementioned a heavy-duty detergent, a professional detergent. So yeah, words. Okay, so the other things that you are going to need is you're going to need soda ash fixer. In this particular case, I think I will be using about half a cup, maybe a little bit more. I have to double check. So it's usually, like a pound of fabric is 3 gallons of water, 3 cups of salt, and like a third of a cup of soda ash fixer that you add later. Get that in a special order. The fiber reactive dye you're going to need. And then I'm going to use some urea. Urea is helpful in pasting up the dye. So this basically helps make sure that the dye doesn't spot. If you've ever dyed something with, say, powdered RIT dye, and you've gotten speckles on the thing that you've dyed of like multicolors, it's because you probably didn't take the time to thoroughly mix the dye in the first place, and then little specks of the dye dust got on the thing. So there's a way that you mix up things first, and we'll paste up the dye using the dye, warm water, and a tablespoon of urea to help it like get a nice smooth pretty color. The water along with the salt will be put into the tub. Then we'll add the dye stuffs. That'll get mixed. Then the wet fabric will go into the dye, and then we'll mix up a special mixture of the soda ash and water. And after the fabric item has soaked for a while, then that gets poured in to activate the dye and set it in place. Okay, so you will need lots of salt. Like I said, it's about it's a cup of salt per gallon of water that you're going to use. So that's why I have like 3 things of salt here. This one is mostly empty, but should be enough for what I'm gonna need. And that again helps with saturation and distribution of the dye into the fabric. This is all science. It's I don't know. Is it osmosis or what's the other one? I don't know. Anyways, it helps it so that the dye soaks into the fabric, basically. So yeah, these are the tools that I'm going to use. I'm going to go do this all on my balcony. It is hot today. I've waited until late in the afternoon. So, let's move on to pasting up the dye. Alright, so here's my bucket of water that is partially full. I'm estimating that I have about 10 gallons of water in there. And here goes salt. And more salt. And there's another thing of salt. So, as I said, you need roughly a cup of salt per gallon of water, roughly. It'll be okay if it's not exactly perfect, but you need salted water. Okay. Hope the audio on this is okay, because I'm sitting on my balcony and we live next to a road. But next step is going to be pasting up the dye. In the vat up here, or in the tub, I have the water. I've stirred it multiple times to dissolve the salt as best possible. This is warm water. It doesn't need to be hot, shouldn't be cold. It should be warm-ish. And everything that I'm working with here is also warm water. So this is warm water, and I have my fabric, the ghee, over here in a bucket with some warm water just so that it stays wet, because you want it wet when it goes into the dye vat. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is paste up the dye, which I haven't opened this yet. So I start with my urea usually, just so that this is clean and doesn't have dye on it when I'm putting it into the urea. I'm gonna use about a tablespoon. Okay. You're gonna want like a cheap fork or something, or not fork, spoon. You know, that thing. Gonna open my dye stuff. Okay. You want to be careful with dye, powdered dye. Don't shake the jar. It's just a bad idea. You will end up with, when you open it, stuff will be aerosolized. You don't want to breathe in this stuff if you can help it. So I like to work somewhere well ventilated. If I have any concerns about it, or if I think I'm going to be doing a large amount of it, I will try to wear at least a dust mask. This is moss green. It doesn't look moss green inside. It looks brown, but it should change once we mix it up. Okay, so I've got, like I said, about 3 pounds of fabric, so I'm going to use about 3 tablespoons of this dye. I don't believe this is one that needed extra. Sometimes some of the fiber reactive dyes do need like double the amount. They will tell you on the website, and it will warn you. But if I remember right, this was not one of them. So I'm just going to use roughly 3 tablespoons. And again, I'm trying to do this creating as little dust as possible. Okay, so I've got the urea and the dye in this container, and then I am just going to, whoops, see, make a mess, kind of clean off the spoon with a little bit of water. Just adding slowly. I don't need a lot right now. I'm going to start small, and then we're going to add more. And you are going to use your spoon to kind of smish up and mash up your dye. Probably put a little too much water in there right now. I usually do less to start, but so again, this water is warm. Start with a little bit, and you want to get a good mix, and everything dissolved, and then you add more water. This is when, once you don't feel any like little urea balls or stuff, or any more grit, then you can go ahead and add more water. want to make sure everything is dissolved. You're not seeing any streaky colors or whatnot. Because, let me see if I can move it down. So, I'll show you this. On the table down here, where it got a little bit and the water got on it, see how it's coming out in different colors? You want to avoid anything in here looking multicolored, because that's the different colors of dye that mix together to make this dye, because it's all like color theory, right? So that's why you want to make sure you get really, really thoroughly mixed. And that is why the urea helps, because the urea helps make it so that the colors don't separate. It just helps sort of emulsify. Is that the right word, maybe? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so once you have your dye mixed up, we're going to add it to the water. I'm just double checking before I add it that all of the salt has dissolved out of the bottom. It has at this point. So now we're going to mix this in very, very thoroughly and slowly. Pour it close to the surface so you don't get splashes. Okay, so I have dissolved my dye. I sat there and stirred it for a while, just to make sure that it's fully dissolved and dispersed in this water. You want to do everything you can to minimize splashing. Okay? So like I said, when you pour the dye in, try and do it close to the surface of the water, less splashes. I don't like drips. Okay, so now I'm going to take, now I've got my bucket with my ghee in it. It is washed and wet. And now it's going to go into the dye, and this is where we hope everything turns out exactly how we want. Sometimes I would do, if I was doing fabric, I would probably do a swatch first, honestly, but I'm not. This is going to turn out whatever color it turns out. I don't have anything else to mix it in to, so it's just going to be what it's going to be. But you can already see, that is mossy green, as we were expecting. So now I'm going to have to tend to this for about 20 minutes. Stirring gently but frequently. You can let it sit for a little bit, but you don't want to let it sit too long, especially with anything above the surface, because then you'll get an uneven dye. So you kind of want to keep it moving. And then in 20 minutes, I will mix up soda ash, about a cup of soda ash with about 2 cups of water, and warm water, and pour that into it slowly. So we'll come back when I'm there. Now this is going to come out lighter once it dries. It's going to come out lighter once it dries, that's for sure. And but it also might change. So when you add the soda ash, which I still have another like 10 minutes before I need to do, when you add the soda ash, that also actually sometimes changes the final color. I've had things that I thought were not going to turn out the right color, and then I added the soda ash, and all of a sudden it was the color that I was expecting it to be. So, and yeah, I just kind of keep turning the fabric every once in a while. I kind of left it for a bit to go clean up so that there wasn't as much stuff out here, which is fine. You can leave it for a few minutes and it's not going to hurt anything, but you do kind of want to keep it moving here and there and submerged, so don't accidentally drop your tongs in either. You know, make sure you have a place to put them, or something outside that you can put them on that you don't mind if it gets some dye on it. Okay, so now this has been sitting in the bath for quite a bit. You want to do at least 20 minutes usually. I left this in a little bit longer in hopes of getting a little bit darker color. It looks pretty good to me. So yeah, I've kind of just been stirring this every few minutes for the past almost 30 now, maybe. So now is the magical part. Okay, so over here I've got a couple of glasses of warm water, and I'm going to do this. Okay, so I need to make a mixture of water and the soda ash. For this particular amount, I need 3 cups of soda ash, or no, not 3 cups. A whole cup of soda ash. It's 1/3 of a cup per pound, or gallon, or 3 gallons of water, roughly. So I'll need to add a whole cup of soda ash mixed with water to this over the next 15 minutes. So I'm going to do it in 3 batches. Do it 1/3 of a cup with warm water, and then slowly pour that in and mix it. And then mix another 1/3 of a cup, or 1/3 of a cup of the soda ash with more warm water. Slowly pour that in. Mix another 1/3 of a cup with the soda ash, or with the warm water of the soda ash with the warm water, and pour that in slowly. So it's a nice slow process. Okay, so I'm keeping the soda ash sort of separate to the side because I don't want it to get water into it. That would be bad for it for the future. So I'm gonna grab my 1/3 of a cup here. So I'm going to very carefully pour the soda ash into this measuring cup. Put that in there. Again, keeping everything separate so that it's dry. Because once you start pouring the water into the soda ash, it actually creates heat. So then we're going to very, very carefully and slowly add the water to the soda ash over here. And I got my handy dandy little mixing spoon. We're going to mix that up. Make sure that it all gets broken up. Don't want any, see there's chunks. I want all of that dissolved well into the water. This is why I'm doing it in thirds, so that I have time to work with this. And also so that I'm not trying to do it in one giant container. So, you don't want chunks of the soda ash, because if the chunks end up on the fabric, it can like cause color distortion. Basically, I've had that happen once, and so again, we're gonna do our best to dissolve this as much as possible before pouring it in. Side, and then we're also going to kind of move the fabric over, and I'm going to slowly pour very close to the surface to one side while swishing. Maybe I will change the camera position for the next batch of this. All right. And I have mixed up my second 1/3 of a cup of soda ash. Again, I'm just going to move everything to the side after I kind of gave it all a good stir. And coming low. Just slowly add this in. The main reason why I'm doing this in a tub instead of a wash machine is because with a wash machine you have to make sure that you don't accidentally drain it. That's the big thing. You don't want to accidentally drain out water at any point in time. You need to keep it agitating. You need to keep it going for a particularly long amount of time, and you need to be able to know exactly how long your cycle is so you can go back and reset your agitation. Because after, whoops, that was my, oh, look, don't even have this in frame where I thought I did. Sorry, guys. After you add your stuff, you have to let this agitate and sit for basically, since this is a dark color, almost an hour. So I've added in the second one, and I'm gonna this is why tongs are good, because you can grab things and move them around. I feel like the color is already darkening. I don't know if you can tell. It's also getting dark out, so I'm probably gonna have to turn on the light out here. I should have started this earlier in the day. But so I've got the last third mixed up. And as you see, I am wearing gloves. Like I said, this stuff, particularly this portion of it, the soda ash, is a caustic chemical. In my youth, in less well-informed days, when we were trying to do a billion, tie-dye t-shirts for children, I did put my hands into soda ash water, although it was much more diluted than this, and really only came out with some dry hands. But it's not suggested, not recommended. Wear gloves, be smart, safety first, always safety first. Because in tie-dyeing, you do this whole thing where you pre-soak everything and then add the colors. It works wonders. I'll probably do a tie-dye video at some point too on this channel, because I want to tie-dye and I haven't in forever. And I'm going to do it with the Dharma and the procion dyes rather than the cheap tulip stuff. So, ooh, I should do both and then show the difference in the colors. That would be a smart idea. Okay, sorry. Brainstorming while I'm working. All right, so now I'm going to start just slowly adding this. Again, kind of keeping the fabric out of the way. Water moving. Whoops! Water moving. This gets tiring. My hand is tired actually at this point. Both of my hands are tired. This one is tired from holding the glass and slowly pouring, and this one is tired from swishing the tongs. So now I'm going to continue to come out here and stir this for about an hour, because this is one of the darker dyes. It's half hour for lighter dye, an hour for darker dye. And it will be dark by then. So we'll see how much of that I film. But then basically after an hour, this gets taken out and I will take it inside. Sorry, that was probably loud. People like to drive by here like idiots. I'll take it inside and I will run it through the wash machine, and then I will slowly dispose of this dye down a drain in my apartment, either toilet or sink. But as I said, environmentally wise and disposal recommendation wise, from everything I have read, it is perfectly safe to go down a sewer drain. So I try to think about these things. Yeah. Okay, I don't know if you can tell, I did turn on the flash on my camera, but the color of this has gotten a lot darker Been stirring it now on and off for about 15 minutes. But even just shortly after adding the whatchamacallit, the soda ash mix, it already started darkening. I could tell it's just now gotten darker out, so it's harder to show you without extra light. Yeah, so I will continue with this and then take it into wash shortly. Okay. Ooh, yeah, that actually looks really nice and dark. Let's see if I can find the pants first. May need to squeeze liquid out of this top. Let's see. This is the heavy part. Okay, so then again, we are going to wash it on hot with the professional textile detergent, the Synterpol or whatever, whichever brand you want to use. Here's the finished in the bathroom. I don't know, the light is not the greatest. It's very white in here. Kind of interested. Okay, so like what's interesting is right here, this took really dark. And then the rest of this did not. And some of it almost looks like it's the wear and tear, like, because like it took well below, but then the like fuzzies. So it did say it was supposed to be 100% cotton. So I don't know if that's just because this is old and been worn a lot. You know, and already well broken in and well loved. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that like here it's really dark on the binding and then not so much on the rest of it. But then again, not you know, not on the underside of here either. So I'm trying to remember, I think this was like a tan color before here. I don't know. If I had the ability, if I had the ability to test some dyes on this, I might have gotten like, or if I had extra fabric or something, I might have added like a yellow into this or something to give it a little more warmth. It's kind of like a gray green right now, although that also could be the lights. But yeah, I mean overall, so yeah, here's the pants. I feel like they ended up looking a little more green. But yeah, it's just interesting because I'm trying to remember exactly what color those were to start with. They were a darker color, but they were not. They definitely took on a lot of green, as did a lot of the stitching around here. So yeah, it's kind of funny. It's always funny to see what does and doesn't take. I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. For a first attempt and never having dyed a gi before, you know, yeah. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the first and second round of dye. You can see a very slight color shift between the first and second round. Thanks for tuning in and watching my video. I really appreciate every single person who spends the time watching all of my silliness and my process. So I hope that you learn some new things about fiber reactive dye and the dyeing process, and have some fun adventures of your own making awesome, cool dye projects. As I said before, there's definitely going to be some more videos coming up about dyeing. I don't know exactly when, but I have at least 2 things that I'm going to be tie-dyeing, possibly in the same video. And then one thing that I do want to do a dip dye on, which will be, it gives you a ombre gradient. So I think that'll be a really cool process to show you guys. If you are enjoying my content, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I really, really love hearing from people and knowing that you're taking away something from my videos, whether it's a small thing that you're learning or just something that you're interested in. I also like to know what people might be interested in learning from me. I have a lot of knowledge and, you know, a lot of ideas, and I sometimes need to focus those, but, you know, we'll get there. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Cut here, Morgan.